The Women Deliver Conference is one of the largest multi-sectoral convenings advancing gender equality by defining global policy directions on issues affecting women. This year, the conference was held in Rwanda's capital, Kigali, attracting over 6,000 participants from across the globe and thousands watching online. Critical conversations on several issues were discussed under the theme Spaces, Solidarity and Solutions.
We must challenge ourselves to do things differently and with a sense of urgency. Commitments which are not followed by action cannot fulfill our promise to build a more just, equitable, and prosperous future for the generations that follow us. Much more remains to be done to tackle biased attitudes about gender, which are deeply embedded in our political, social, and economic systems.
Among the pivotal issues discussed was the urgent need to advocate for reproductive justice globally. A provoking and yet insightful discussion it was at the sideline event organized by Ahaki under the topic Litigating Reproductive Justice in Africa, Reimagining an Afrocentric Approach. From judges, scholars, civil society activists, politicians, donors, name them, everyone rushed to catch a seat as we took a deep dive into what it means to litigate cases under the sexual reproductive health docket in Africa.
And we must begin reimagining what reproductive justice looks like on the African continent. There was an effort in the US to advance reproductive justice for a long time. While it may relate to Africa, and it may have a relationship with the history of Africa, of slavery, of race, I think Africa now has more than enough reasons to reimagine its own judicial systems if we are to realize social, economic rights, including important rights like reproductive rights.
Litigation as an intervention plays a vital role in improving to SRHR landscape on the continent. However, our approach thus far has primarily focused on individual rights and choices, overlooking the broader society impact. We must broaden our perspective and consider the collective obligation of our societies to ensure reproductive justice for all.
The sideline event was also graced by Uganda's Supreme Court Judge, the Honorable Professor Lady Justice Lilian Tibatemwa Echiri-Kubinza, who shed light on exemplary cases focusing on sexual reproductive health and rights that adopted an Afrocentric perspective.
It's extremely difficult to obtain a legal abortion, or not as a consequence, but despite the law, it is difficult to get to obtain permission to conduct an abortion. And as a result, most abortions are clandestine and certainly unsafe. So in a particular case, the survivor of rape attempted unsuccessfully to obtain contraception when she realized that her pregnancy was a possible result of her household. When the window within which she could obtain emergency contraception closed, she quickly sought to terminate the pregnancy. In her attempts, she was timeous, but was misguided by the police and so on, and she only obtained a pregnancy termination certificate 5 months after the rape. By that time, medical professionals advised that it would be too risky to terminate the pregnancy, so she carried the baby to term. She sued the Minister of Home Affairs for the conduct of the police officers, and the court granted her damages for the pain and suffering and so on. But I think when you read the case, if I recall closely, she was denied damages for the cost of maintaining the child because the court judged her responsible for not knowing what to do. Now, this case highlights the importance of state interventions in this area. The young woman was ignorant or only knew so little, but had the state discharged its duty to inform all stakeholders of the existence of these services, the procedure and the rights, perhaps the case would have turned out differently.
She also acknowledged the progress made by African courts in realizing reproductive autonomy and justice, but called on the people in the room to do much more.
Emerging opportunities lie in scaling to spaces beyond the national boundaries. Look at the African Commission. It has delivered a series of rulings elucidating the crux of the right to health. However, there is no doubt that when it comes to sexual and reproductive health rights, the potential of the Commission is still underutilized. Look at the African Committee of Experts on the Rights of the Child and its potential. At least its potential came out very clearly in a complaint filed against the government of Tanzania for its expulsion of pregnant girls from school. The committee found that the Tanzania's policy violated several provisions of the African Charter on the Rights of the Child, and the committee ordered that the policy be rescinded and that the girls who had given birth be allowed back in school. And I would ask people from Tanzania, did it happen? What were the challenges even when you tried to take back these girls to school?
It was then time to hear what it is like to litigate sexual reproductive health in different African countries. First, it was the experience from Rwanda.
We had the first test case, the 13-year-old girl that Justice Lydian talked about, that had been denied an abortion because the doctor thought that she needed a court order. So we challenged that provision of the court order before the High Court, and the High Court overturned the request. The requirement for a court order was removed by the High Court. And I think it is the first case in Rwanda for the High Court to refer to Maputo Protocol as an instrument that makes part of the Rwandan law. We are celebrating that judgment today because the High Court referred to Maputo Protocol as part of Rwandan law. So there is no need now for a court order. A minor can just move directly to the doctor or service provider, and and there is no need also for parental consent, because the law says that whenever there is a disagreement between the minor and the parent, the decision of the minor is taken into consideration. So it means that the minor now can move. So that is one of the success stories we got from the High Court.
In Zimbabwe, it was the same script, different cast.
My experience has been that a lot of the women who are prosecuted are low-income women who do not have resources and who do not have access to legal aid. And a lot of times they confess because their warned and caution statements are not properly taken. And when then they confess to the crime, and when it comes to court, they are convicted on their own plea of guilty, and it's not really clear whether they understand the elements of what they are pleading guilty to. So these are the challenges that we are facing in terms of the criminal defense. Some of the times you find that when it comes to civil litigation, judges or the bench may feel that yes, something wrong has happened, but they tend to grant the judgment on technicalities in that way and not engage with the merits of the case. So you don't get useful jurisprudence. This means that every person now has to go and litigate rather than having useful jurisprudence that can be applied across. So these are just the tip of what we are facing. Thank you.
And from Malawi,
women are not free to procure abortion. legally, and as a result, they are forced to do so, in clandestine settings where they are exposed, to risks. In Malawi, 18% of maternal deaths are due to unsafe abortion, and that shows, the seriousness of this problem. So we've been trying to have the law changed. There was a bill that we came up with as civil society organizations to try, to expand the grounds for abortion. But unfortunately, the bill did not see the light of day. It was blocked from Parliament. Just like I guess in Rwanda, we have a very strong, position for the churches. The churches have really, put up strong opposition to any efforts to introduce the termination of pregnancy bill.
We all held our breath as we heard from a teenager from Uganda.
If you're not in this space, do you understand what that means? I might understand what it means because I've been in this space. But when you ask a random young person, what does litigation of reproductive justice mean to you as a person? They will not understand anything, because to them, as long as they have family planning services, that is enough for them. As long as they have access to condoms, free condoms, even if it's just at a health facility or randomly, that is enough for them. They do not have this information. They do not have access to any of these services, specifically because they do not have anyone to tell them that this is your right, you have access to this, you can get access to this. So it is something that we are lacking as a country, something that we should work on as a country, and not just in spaces where young people are having voices heard. We are trying to speak, but we are not speaking to everyone. We are not speaking to our fellow young people because the information they're getting is not tailored to what they are supposed to get. And as we young people, we might be talking to each other, but then what other information are we getting from society? What other information are we getting from health facilities? Because even as you visit one, you're going to be told, at your age, you want to know about SRHR? What do you want to know? Are you sexually active? Just random questions, and they keep on coming. And at the end of the day, someone might just even move out of the store and just be like, so, fellow nurses, that girl in there is asking me about condoms. She's asking about condom use. I think she's sexually active. Did she come with her parents? And then the whole group will come to you and start advising you on what you're supposed to do. You're still too young to understand this. At the age of 14, we have young people that are very sexually active. At the age of 11, 12. And this is all because they are being exposed to all of this, but they're not being exposed to information and services. So we're having kids get pregnant and having unsafe abortions. We have kids taking detergent specifically because they cannot even tell their parent. We're having kids being beaten up by their parents, which might lead to their death, specifically because we're turning a blind eye.
It was mixed reactions from the audience that reflected on the different challenges ahead, reacting to the panel discussion.
And we're not looking at the intervention of anti-rights, well-organized, well-funded groups. We are missing the opportunity. The classic case, my last point, and I'm sorry to take up too much time, but I thought this was a point worth dwelling on for future discussion. For the classic case of the JMM case, which was, I think, petition 266 of 2015, where the government of Kenya affirmed, the Constitutional Court of Kenya affirmed the right to abortion, and also found that the withdrawal of the guidelines that I was talking about earlier by the Director for Medical Services contravened the right to life, health, and all these other related rights that are related to abortion access, was that there was a violation of these rights by the withdrawal of those guidelines. Currently, that case is being appealed by religious fundamentalist groups. That classic case, that jurisprudence that we look to as Africans to be able to push our country courts and our governments to do better by women, is being appealed, and they are appealing. It defeats logic or common sense that they are appealing the award of 2.5 million to a mother who lost a child in such a terrible way. So I'm just saying, as I close, I hope that we'll have a conversation about how to hold these anti-rights groups accountable, because it's not the governments. The governments are being pressured by external forces, and doctors cannot do their work because they are being shamed.
what is clear here and back home, that there's an information gap in reproductive health justice system. When we were doing constitutional petition number 10, filed by SEHAD, one of the judges remarked that first and foremost, this petition, abortion in Uganda is illegal. So this petition sought to, the constitution says that abortion is illegal unless authorized by law, but there is no such law that authorizes abortion. So SEHAD and two of its board members petitioned the Constitutional Court, and one of the judges at the hearing of the petition remarked that, do you want the public to accuse us, court, of promoting abortion? And I said, no, my lord. And that was a panel of 5 justices. The petitioners don't seek to promote abortion or termination of pregnancy, but rather the petitioners seek to challenge the omission of the state to enact the law that regulates termination of pregnancy. And earlier on, we had received the information that religious leaders were mobilizing people to come and demonstrate in court about that petition. You've heard Shirak's presentation that the information does not reach everybody. My brother Tom said that this is a unique area of practice, and indeed I was happy that the judge alluded to it, that the information, even at the bench, they were trained much earlier and they need to be retrained. So we need to bridge the information gap, ladies and gentlemen.
I suggest that when we want to move forward with litigating reproductive justice in Africa, let's involve the community. We have the grassroots girls and women who are actually the sufferers. They need to be empowered to actually appreciate that they have a right. They need to be empowered to know what to do. The Rwandan case clearly brought it out, that the girl did not know what to do. So I think coming to Women Deliver
is at the core and the heart of gender equality. It is at the heart of gender equality. And it is about women and girls making choices about themselves, about their reproductive health, and their bodily autonomy. Without it, without reproductive justice, we can never achieve gender equality. And if we cannot achieve gender equality, we are actually not going to achieve the SDGs. None of the SDGs will achieve by 2030 if we do not make sure that there is reproductive justice.
The participants left energized to continue with the advocacy for sexual reproductive health and rights through leveraging the continent's legal and policy frameworks. The conference also provided a space for Ahaki to convene a gathering of the partners of her program work titled Litigating Reproductive Justice in Africa, LIRA.
After the conceptualization, and then we had a lead team that has been leading the work, many of whom have come to your countries. I've either accidentally met some of you or have met you because of the past relationships that we've had, or have met you because of the networks that I've had before. But as they came out to your countries, the desire was to find out what actually is happening already, what would we build on, and how do we make things better. One of the interesting things that we need is to see solidarity across the different things we are working on. While we all talk about litigations and sexual reproductive health and rights, in this room we address different aspects of that. Others approach it from a human rights lens, others from a women's rights lens, others from a sexual orientation range, others from a public health range, but we are all talking about the same thing. And we've not had that opportunity to actually come in one room and share what we've seen as working out.
The LIRA Partner Gathering offered a panorama of achievements and best practices in bolstering reproductive justice across the continent. Each partner shared their experiences and challenges in implementing the project in their different countries.
Same-sex marriage prohibition act in Nigeria that criminalizes same-sex conduct. We had to go to Lagos to file a suit and not Abuja, where you had the lawmakers, the authorities, and all that bearing down on the judges. That wasn't a decision. The law was passed in Abuja, but we had to go to Lagos to challenge the law, as it is. as we're preparing to, for now, begin to talk about the state providing for safe abortion, what we're trying to do in Nigeria right now is to project stories of women who have been raped by bandits and are pregnant, project stories of little girls who are probably made pregnant by their parents. Just try to put those stories out very strongly and get persons begin to talk about it, people that matter. And then when you approach the court, you say, look, why don't we look at the Maputo Protocol and try to see how we can, so there's a linkage, between the need for safe abortion and what is happening in society. But if you just go straight to court without bringing some sort of publicity to those stories, then you begin to, get some sort of fractures between the support you're going to get from the media, and how the courts are going to approach it.
This layer of work around strategic litigation is an opportunity and an entry point to tackling some of the challenges that we encounter. Firstly, maybe to talk about the fact that sex work is criminalized in our country. That has brought about a lot of complications because the sex workers we're talking about here are low-income sex workers who go into the streets for 50 cents or for $1, and their vulnerabilities are increased because if they are caught, they are basically arrested. So in many instances, they are at the mercy of the clients who refuse to use protection, clients who can actually rape them, and resultantly, this sex worker might become pregnant. And if this person has been convicted previously on grounds of sex work, when they present at a police station and they try to convince police officers that they've been raped, you get police officers questioning how a sex worker can be raped in the first place. And this also means that if a pregnancy, if they become pregnant as a result of that encounter, which our police, we come from a very corrupt society where a police officer would rather accept a bribe from a perpetrator. And if a pregnancy results from such an encounter, it's not really taken seriously, but it's a rape. This woman should be able to access a safe abortion service, a legal and safe abortion service, as per our Termination of Pregnancy Act of 1977.
This whole ignorance about the whole idea of diversity, of people being with a different sexual orientation with the one we are used to, or people being with a different gender that you expect them to be, but also the question of intersex. So what happens is that even when we're going to litigate, you need to feed information about reality. Who is this person? From the beginning, the basics of who is a lesbian, basics of who is an intersex, to both the people who are implementing the law, but also those, the judges. And at HIRAF, what we have really focused on is to have side conversations with the key players within the justice system to first of all understand, meet LGBT persons, for example, meet sex workers and understand their realities. Talk to them about who they are and what they are going through on a daily basis.
It is kind of tough for us, but for us, we think the starting point would be how do we engage other lawyers? Lawyers who can be like retainers, where we have lawyers who come on board in terms of our response to these cases, abortion rights cases. I remember HIRAF, at the time I was working with HIRAF, and sent out sort of like a call and people to be like rapid response lawyers, and few lawyers came out to respond to these cases. When we look at our countries, there are few lawyers who want to stand by and speak about reproductive justice issues, especially abortion cases. And for us as an organization, we have used a tool of rapid response, because after the law came in, we have had cases. I remember just like a month ago where we had to respond to a lesbian case. And when we entered into a police station to register a case, then the man said, "Is this a woman or a man?" Okay, these are the street lawyers they always talk about. That criminalization as you as a lawyer,
as a street lawyer, the person who didn't study law, but you're just a street lawyer picked on street to represent such a woman. You know, this woman is going through that trauma because she has been actually gang raped, but even when you reach at the police station, the reception from the police about how, whether this is a man or a woman, you want to actually ascertain before you even register a case. So we have taken through the LIRA program to actually do reproductive legal rapid response in terms of responding to these cases.
The program is being implemented by partners from Kenya, Malawi, Nigeria, Senegal, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. This assembly showcased the influence and recognition of Ahaki's efforts in promoting reproductive justice in Africa. The experience was also a celebration of collaborative synergies among LIRA program partners.